Hi everyone, welcome to our webinar about the Work and Development Order Program. We're broadcasting today from Sydney in Legal Aid Head Office. My name's Linda, I'm a solicitor in the Work and Development Order team at Legal Aid, and I'm here with Karina.
Hello.
So we'll be presenting the webinar today. It should be about an hour in length. We have our trusty producer with us, Natalie, who's helping to negotiate some questions. And if you have any technical issues, now would be a good time to maybe type in a question, and we'll tell you how to do that in a second. Before we get going, we'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that we're broadcasting from today, as well as traditional owners of Aboriginal lands across New South Wales. And we'd like to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. Okay, so we'll just, are we going to give you a little bit of guidance just about what the...
We might get people to just type in where they're listening from today just to check that you can actually hear us and all good.
Yeah. So, okay, so yeah, you'll see on the screen now, that's just a little bit of an overview of what you'll be looking at.
Yep, we've got some people tuning in so they can hear us from around the state.
Great, excellent. Awesome. So you can see there the control panel. If you want to ask questions, you can see the control panel on the right side of your screen. In there is a box where you can type in questions. Sometimes the control panel might shrink. You can expand it again if you press the red button with the arrow in it. And you can see that circled up there. If you can't see the full control panel, just click on that red button to make it reappear. So if you want to type in questions for us during the webinar, and we'll respond to individuals as they come in. I think Natalie is going to read them out and we'll just answer questions as they come in. We've got a few poll questions on the way, so that'll hopefully keep you awake. If you have any trouble hearing us, I think there is an option to telephone in, Natalie.
Yeah, it should have been
hopefully you'll be able to hear us. So just, you've typed in, where have we got people from, Natalie?
Yeah, so we've got people who typed in from Queanbeyan, Dubbo, Port Macquarie and Wollongong.
Awesome, great. So we're expecting more, so hopefully we'll have more people joining us along the way.
And orange, exclamation mark.
Okay. Okay, Karina, what are we up to? So this is just an overview of what we're going to be looking at today. This webinar, you know, it is intended for Department of Communities and Justice caseworkers, but if there's other people tuning in, you'll get you know, the same information is relevant for you. So we're going to just do an overview of work and development orders, a bit of a contextualization of fines and work and development orders, who caseworkers can help, how you can set up and manage a WDO, a little bit of an overview of what Legal Aid and Revenue New South Wales does. We've got some resources, contacts for help, and there'll be hopefully time for questions at the end. Okay.
Poll question?
No, I think we've, sorry. So just as a bit of a background, well, we'll call them FaCS, it's department that's so long now, Communities and Justice Community Service Centres, districts are now approved all across the state to be work and development order sponsors. So we've been working with people in head office to try to coordinate the rollout of the program across all of the FaCS Community Service Centres. You can see on the screen there, we have now, there's 7 unique portal IDs so that for you to access the Work and Development Order Program, so you can go in and help people to clear their fines. If you want to figure out where your district is, you can email that allocation cluster coordination email address that's showing on the screen, and they'll be able to direct you to your administrator. Essentially, there's administrators in the program, and then you can get added on as a standard user by contacting your administrator. We'll talk about that a bit more later. So, yeah, since a couple of months ago, all the New South Wales CSCs are approved to help their clients pay their fines through activities, and we'll talk more about that. So it's through direct activities and referral activities, but we'll give you more information about that.
Okay, Linda, that's a lot of info. So we're just going to make sure that everyone's awake. So we're going to do poll time.
Okay.
So we'll just open up a poll, and the question is, what is your experience with the Work and Development Order Scheme? 1, I know nothing about WDOs. 2, I know a bit about WDOs but haven't set up any yet. 3, I've done between 1 to 15 WDOs, and 4, I've had heaps of experiences and I shall be running this show.
Great.
Okay.
So are the results coming in, Natalie?
Yes, I think I'll close that.
Okay.
So we're going to see the results up. Is that what happens?
Yes, we should share the poll results. So Karina, we've got 43% of people say I know nothing about WDOs, and 57% say they know a bit about WDOs but haven't set up any.
Excellent.
So
hopefully by the end of this webinar, everyone should be able to do one.
yes.
Great.
Great. So now we're just going to talk about what are WDOs. So the WDO scheme has achieved amazing results since it was first piloted in 2009 and then rolled out from 2011. And we recently learned that over 160 million, you heard right, 160 million of fines debt has been cleared by the WDO program. The Work and Development Order Program is a partnership between 3 organisations, and that's Revenue New South Wales, who manage unpaid fines in New South Wales and issue the Work and Development Orders. You can contact the hotline for help via the online self-service portal, and they also process new WDO sponsors and variation applications. Then we have the Department of Communities and Justice, who administer the WDO scheme, including approving new sponsors and are responsible for the WDO guidelines and audits. And then you have Legal Aid New South Wales, and we have 6 teams across the state. We promote access to WDOs, we provide sponsored training, we develop WDO resources and provide a specialist service for clients with unpaid fines. And you can find the details of your closest WDO team on the Legal Aid New South Wales website. You just search WDO.
And I should mention, Karina, that our teams, we've got 6 teams across New South Wales, and they're
Yes.
really happy to come and provide face-to-face training,
Yes.
as well as this webinar. Like, you might find that you want people to come to your centre, and we're really happy to organise that.
That's correct.
So just a little bit of an overview of the impact of unpaid fines. We find that, unless you're kind of one of us and you've been working in this area for a long time, sometimes people think, well, so what? People get fines. Shouldn't they just pay their fines? But
that is a general consensus.
But I think we have just found, and you may have found, and you probably will find if you ask the question, that people are just impacted by fines, especially when they have mental health issues. They might be young people. They might be targeted for, not riding their bike without a helmet, or
So
riding
Linda,
a skateboard.
Would it be fair to say that unpaid fines has more of an impact for disadvantaged, vulnerable people than it does for, say, someone that actually has a job and can pay, their bills on time?
Yeah. I think that's really what we find. I think that's why the WDO program is so fantastic, because it kind of allows people who really are vulnerable and just can't afford to pay their fines to do all these different activities. So
we're now going to do another poll just to keep you on your toes again. And we'll just get Natalie, our wonderful producer, to launch it. So hopefully you can see it. And the question is, how often do your clients have fines? So it's either sometimes, often, never, or I don't know as I don't ask.
Okay, we might close the poll there and share it with you.
What do
So
the results say?
Karina, about a third of the people say sometimes.
Yep.
58% often.
Great.
And 8% don't know as they don't ask.
Excellent. So it would be great if the 8% that don't know, don't ask will just make it part of their routine when they're sitting down and talking with the person to just, ask that question, do you have any fines debt, or, do you have an unpaid fine?
yeah, that's true. We find if people make it part of their intake process, or
Yes.
just a question, because often fines can lead to other problems. If people have fines that they're not dealing with or not paying,
Yes,
they're likely to have other issues that they're not dealing with.
Exactly.
Or other legal issues. So, as I said, the management of Communities and Justice have been really keen to support the WDO program, and they want to make sure that all young people in care feel that they can be supported to manage fines and debt. So, did you know that a young person could be fined as young as 10 years of age?
Pardon, what, Linda? Did you say 10, as in a primary school child in, say, year 4, year 5?
Yeah. So, and, you know, we find that young people can be fined, as I said before, you know, bicycle offences, skateboarding offences, not riding on the train without not having a ticket on the train. Like, we have people with thousands of dollars worth of fines just because they've been trying to jump on the train to get places.
Well, I better go home and tell my children that, so that...
Yeah. So this is why the management at Communities and Justice really felt it was important for all caseworkers to have the opportunity to be able to help people to deal with their fines.
Yeah, because once they leave care, at least if they're leaving with a clean slate and debt-free, or at least part of their debt-free, I think it's a great start to them becoming an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, and lifting of the thing, we'll talk about it a little bit now, but it's the consequences of unpaid fines that can really have a great impact on people.
That's correct. So we're going to look now at the types of fines in New South Wales. So there are basically 3 types of fines. As you can see, there's court fines, penalty notice, and victims restitution order. So court fines is a monetary penalty issued by a court that is given instead of, say, a sentence. Penalty notices, usually all know what they are, that, you know, your speeding fines and things like that, your littering. And then you have your victim's restitution order. So that is where a victim of crime has applied for a recognition payment. They've gone through the appropriate processes, that has been approved, and then the government would like the money that they've, you know, given out to that victim back from the perpetrator, and that's what a victim's restitution order is.
So, Karina, all of these are fines that people can do a work and development order for?
Yes, it's what we call an eligible debt.
Yeah.
The next thing we should be mindful of is to not ignore a fine. So fines, just like life, have a fine cycle. So once you commit the offence, you get a penalty notice. That's usually given to you on the spot. It could be in the mail or under your windscreen, or given to you on the spot. There's an initial 21-day period to challenge or pay the fine, so you've got 21 days to deal with it. If you don't, Revenue will send you what's called a penalty reminder notice, and then it gives you another 28 days to either pay or challenge the fine. So after those 7 weeks, the fine goes into enforcement and becomes overdue or a pay now fine. And Revenue New South Wales then has a number of enforcement options that they can apply to get you to pay the fine.
And so that's when it goes to overdue, that's when it starts increasing?
Yes, that's correct. So what should you do if you get a fine? You've basically got 2 options. Either you accept the fine, and that's through either paying it, or if you're eligible, doing a WDO, or you can challenge the fine. But the important message is to get your fines under management. If you challenge the fine, there are several avenues for that. You could do an internal review, you could do an annulment, you could apply for a write-off, you could elect to go to court. However, going to court, you must bear in mind court costs, and the outcomes could that the fine could be dismissed, the fine could be imposed, or the fine could be imposed with higher costs.
So I guess, Karina, if people are not sure, maybe they want to challenge a fine, they find out there's some fines owing, they can get in touch with us to get some advice about that?
Definitely always encourage anyone to get legal advice before electing to go to court, because once you elect to go to court, you can't actually backtrack and say, no, I don't want to do it now, I want to pay.
Yeah.
As Linda was explaining earlier, once it goes over to overdue or pay now, the fine does increase. So if the original fine was, say, $100, just by going to overdue is $165 now. If it's a young person under 18, the fine is actually increased by $25. There's also other sanctions, other civil sanctions, which are $65, or any roads and maritime service sanctions, they're $40.
And so some of those other civil sanctions, can you tell us what they are?
Sure. So you can do suspend your license or cancel your registration, a garnishee order, an examination summons, a community service order, not to be confused with work and development order, or a charge on your land. So
I think it's really those driver license sanctions that are a killer for our clients.
They are, but young people can have enforcement action, either the RMS sanction or the customer business restrictions sanction taken against them if they have traffic related fines. So if the young person's fines are just fines for trains, there are none of those RMS sanctions. However, if it is a traffic-related offence such as speeding, so the only type of enforcement action is a RMS or a customer business restriction sanction.
That's when they're under 18, but once they hit 18, no matter what the fine is, all these sanctions can come into play.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, so again, the message is ask if they've got fines, let's deal with them. Let's do something about them. Okay. Do we have another poll, Natalie?
There was a poll to test if people were listening about the age you can be fined in New South Wales.
A little sneaky one there.
Okay, let's launch that.
So at what age can you be fined in New South Wales? 10, 13, 16 or 18?
Alrighty.
And I think we can say that everyone was listening.
Yay.
Excellent.
So that is 10. You can actually get
we've got, some people said 18, but to clarify that it is actually 10.
It actually is 10 years old that you can get a fine. It just won't be enforced until they're 18.
Yeah.
But it is 10. So all the year 4s and 5s in primary school can start getting fined.
Okay. So now we're just going to look at who can do a work. Sorry, we're going back a page. Just to talk about a little bit more about fines in young people.
You can be fined, as we said, from 10 years of age. Some fines are less for young people, for example, the transport fines. And then some enforcement action is different for young people. We just make everyone aware is that often young people aren't aware of their fines because they don't have a fixed address. They may be, couch surfing with some friends or relatives, and they've got mum and dad address, but they're staying with auntie, so they could get a fine in the mail, and then they're not aware of it. Sometimes they don't have support at home to get help with their fine. They don't feel confident with calling revenue, just to say if you have a fine, and any RMS restrictions will hinder their employment. So it's always good to use this referral form that we have. It's called Law Checkup, and it's just basically going through the form and just ticking out what different legal issues a young person could have.
Okay, so now we're just going to look at who is eligible to do a work and development order.
What, Linda? No, everyone's not eligible to do that?
No.
Like I can't do one?
No, I don't think you'd be eligible, Karina.
Okay.
But so since 2017, all people who are under 18, young people, are eligible to do a work and development order. You need to... Thank you.
Anyone in acute economic hardship, which basically means that you're on Centrelink, or you could still be earning some money, and there is a threshold table that you can earn some money and still be eligible.
So people who are homeless, and that's pretty broadly defined. So people like Karina mentioned who are couch surfing, who are living in a boarding house or a caravan park, or
so it's not just sleeping rough.
Yeah, no, it's a very broad definition of homelessness. So if they don't have just an address or a bedroom for themselves, they may well be classed as homeless. So that's a good ground of eligibility.
Another one is mental illness, and that's diagnosed by a health practitioner within. Is it 6 months that the diagnosis has to be valid, Linda?
It should be an up-to-date diagnosis.
Yeah. If they have an intellectual disability, cognitive impairment, again diagnosed by a health practitioner, or if they have a serious addiction to drugs, alcohol or volatile substances, which includes gambling disorders and schizotypal disorders.
Yeah. Okay. So basically anyone who's eligible can do any activity except for the drug and alcohol. If a person's only eligible under that drug and alcohol grounds, they have to do drug and alcohol treatment.
That's correct.
Okay, so who can you help? Really the focus is on young people who are leaving care or may still be in care, who you are case managing. But there will also be, people that you may be case managing who are, young parents, single parents, families with teenagers, maybe the mums or dads, grandparents, anyone that you're case managing with a fine, you're able to help through the work and development order program as long as they're eligible.
And I'm just going to come back to the previous screen. We've got a question about what evidence needs to be provided, I guess, for all those eligibility criteria.
An excellent question. And it is important. You do have to keep proof of eligibility. we will give you resources about that.
Mm-hmm.
There is very specific eligibility that you need. For example, homelessness, it's really just a letter from a caseworker confirming the type of situation the person is in.
Yeah, economic hardship under Centrelink is just really their Centrelink statement.
Yep, an income statement. But it's a great question because often people, you know, might just keep a copy of the Centrelink card, but you do need an actual Centrelink income statement. But we will give you more information about that, don't worry.
And those resources will be sent after a link in the webinar.
Yeah.
So now we've got another poll, so it's poll time. Again, so what is the most commonly issued penalty notice in New South Wales?
I don't think we've told them this answer, Karina, so it's a bit of a
guess,
but that's okay.
Okay, let's see how you go. What do you think? Is it not having your dog registered, speeding 10 kilometres but less than 20 kilometres above the speed limit, use of offensive language, or driving with a suspended licence?
I think most people have answered, so I'll close that.
Okay, we'll do the results. Tell us, Natalie.
I don't think it's dogs.
Okay.
That's correct.
46% say the speeding.
Yeah.
31% use of offensive language,
Mm-hmm.
and 23% the driving with suspended licence.
Okay, the correct answer actually is use of offensive language.
Yeah.
That is the most commonly issued penalty notice, and it is quite expensive. It costs you $500 every time you want to swear, basically.
Yeah. Speeding is up there as well, I have
Yes,
to say. I think
it
it
is.
might be the second
It
highest.
is the second highest.
But the offensive language is an important one because especially with young people, you know,
Yes.
they might have
An
you know,
outburst.
drug and alcohol problems or oppositional defiance disorder, whatever,
Yes.
you know, they're young people and they get fined on the train and then some language follows and bang, they get a fine for not having a ticket on the train plus the $500 for offensive language. So,
Yeah, and that's if they don't do offensive behaviour, which is another fine, and that's another $500 on top of that.
yeah. Okay, so this is just a summary of all the activities that it's possible to do on a work and development order. You can see there's a table. It's basically $1,000 a month is the maximum that you can help a person to clear from their fines. And there you can see all the rates. So if they're doing volunteer work, that's $30 an hour. An education program, so $50 an hour. So that can be, you know, a learn to drive program or a parenting program, anger management, you know, a whole host of things, many things that you're probably referring people to. So that's $50 an hour. Financial counselling and case management is also $50 an hour. So that work that you're doing, sitting down and working with a young person and you know, looking at their goals, or you're working together trying to help them on their way out of care, that's case management, and that is counted at $50 an hour. So this one is actually the only activity that you as caseworkers in FaCS are approved for as a direct activity. So that's that case management that you're doing. But you are actually referred for all of these activities on referral. So that means if the person that you're working with, you might be doing that case management with them, but you're also referring them out to another organisation to do a Learn to Drive program, and maybe they're doing an anger management down at Headspace, for example. So you can count all of those activities. So it's the case management you're doing plus the $50 an hour for the other programs.
So basically, Linda, you're saying that any case management or counselling that the workers do is direct, so it's within the organisation, and anything that they refer out for any of the other activities is on a referral basis.
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
And we'll go through again the proof that you need to keep. So we'll talk a bit more about that.
And just to reiterate, if a person is eligible under a drug or alcohol as the eligibility criteria, they can only do drug or alcohol treatment as part of their WDO.
Yeah, that's if they're only eligible under that grant.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And Linda, can you do like more than $1,000 a month on an activity?
No, so our maximum is $1,000 a month. That's the most you can clear off your fine.
So I can't do like 1 month, say $800, and then the next month, say $1,200, sort of equivalates to like, you know.
No, unfortunately not.
Okay. Thanks for
So it'd be
clarifying.
$800, then $1,000. Yeah, that's the maximum.
Great, thank you.
So this is just a little sort of summary of essentially, yeah, what all of your organisations are approved for. As I said, there's 7 districts, so there's 7 sort of separate portal IDs or administration points that you have in your FaCS approvals. So you can see that's sort of just saying it in a different way what we've just said, which is direct is the counselling or case management, and all the other activities you can support on referral.
But I think, Linda, just to be mindful that if you do refer to any third-party organisation, one, it's great that they don't have to be a WDO sponsor themselves, but you just need to be satisfied that that organisation is suitable for your client. So we need to consider things like insurance, if it's a health practitioner, you know, APRA, and they don't have any things against them, and things like safety policies, that the staff are appropriate and that they can keep records for you.
Yeah, and again, people sometimes get a bit stressed out about this, thinking, oh, what do I have to do to make sure that I've satisfied that, you know, that onus? But I guess you will be working with organisations that you are just confident that they are a registered organisation. So I guess it's just telling you, turn your mind to it. If you're not sure, ask them if they've got insurance, especially, I suppose, with things like if you're referring out a volunteer work, for example, and, you know, you might have a young person that you're referring to a little service. This is a specific example that I came across, that they were helping people move women who were in domestic violence situations, and they sort of, it was a great little service, but they weren't really set up properly, and they didn't have insurance, and they didn't have volunteer accident insurance. So you need to just be mindful that you're referring your clients are kind of, you know, you're a bit responsible for them, and make sure you're not referring them to a place that they're not going to be safe and covered by appropriate insurance.
Okay, so Linda, is everything an approved activity for a WDO, or is there some sort of parameters around that some things are excluded?
Yeah, so if we look at this page, that kind of is a bit of a summary, a bit of an overview of the types of things that can be included under all the different heads of eligibility, under all the activities, sorry, not eligibility, the activities. And you can see that people can do, under the included column there, people can do WDOs while they're in jail or in juvenile justice, in detention. They excluded activities, so if a person, and so this is particularly relevant for young people up to the age of 17, if they're attending school, so the school that they're attending up to that compulsory school age can't be counted as a WDO activity. It might be something additional that they're doing. If they're doing some additional learning or they're doing some counselling, that can be counted, but not compulsory school attendance at school.
Okay, so just say they're 18, can they include that one then, Linda?
They can.
Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
at the moment, yeah. And so also activities that are undertaken as part of a traineeship or apprenticeship is actually not included either. Again, if it's an additional training or something extra, that's okay, but not that actual attendance at TAFE or the work they're doing as an apprentice or trainee.
Okay, what about Centrelink? Because you know, you've got that job active or that youth allowance.
Yeah,
I'm not sure exactly what it is.
Yeah, job active, youth allowance, all of those. If you have a mandatory activity that you have to do to get your Centrelink, you can't count that either.
Okay. Is there a work around that, or?
Look,
if I did more hours, could I count that?
You can do additional hours.
Excellent.
It's probably a good idea. If you're not sure, talk to the person's job active provider. And they will, often people have mandatory and kind of voluntary activities. So it can be a little bit confusing to try to figure out, but I'd say just talk to the job active or you know, disability provider. Okay,
and I see that no court orders activities are to be included except sections 32 under the Mental Health Forensic Provisions Act. Is that correct?
Yes.
Excellent.
We haven't got that written. I'm just a bit distracted because it's saying about family court ordered counselling, which, yeah. Okay, so volunteer work as well. If you're doing volunteer work under work for the dole, you can't count that. And mandatory conditions of a court order. That's right. All right.
Next. All right, we've got our case study. So we thought it'd be really useful to do a case study because we give you a lot of concepts and it's sort of a bit in the air and you're like, what are they talking about? I don't understand. But if we contextualize this into a person and then we go through the process, I think it's easier to drill down and think, this is what it means. So we'll just go through the case study. So his name's Dan. Dan is he's 17 years old and he lives with a carer, Emily, and he's not attending school regularly. He's sad because he hasn't seen his younger siblings for ages, as they have not shown up for contact. He's staying out late at night and Emily suspects he's taken drugs. He has a lot of fines from transit officers for not having an Opal card and the police for using offensive language. He hasn't told Emily or his CSC caseworker, Kaz, about them, as he hides or throws away the letters he gets from revenue. He's having trouble studying because of all his worries, including the fines debt. He tells Kaz at his next appointment. How can Kaz help?
So it's great that he's actually told Kaz about all the fines.
I know, he's actually quite an open young person, because usually they don't.
Yeah.
So Kaz must be doing something really good to build up that rapport, and that's what a lot of caseworkers do. They build that rapport, and once they have it, then the young person actually opens up to him.
And I'm sure this is a typical sort of scenario that you might recognise.
Yes.
So how can Kaz help Dan? So let's have a look. The fines that he's got some transit fines for not using his Opal card properly, smoking on the platform, 2 of them, $600. There's the old offensive language. So he's got a total of $1,700. So how can Kaz help Dan?
Well, we have to sort of check first at which part of the fine cycle they're at, because, you know, if you wanted to challenge them or anything like that, and also if they're in if they're not enforced yet. If they've all come across as an overdue or pay now fine, then his options are either to pay them or do a WDO. And what are the suitable activities if he wants to do a WDO? Well, that would be a discussion that you'd have with Dan. But when we're thinking about this, when we turn our mind to this, we think that the WDO is the better option for him, because we know he's 17 and he has no money. And what suitable activities would be? So
let's have a look. So Kaz, is he eligible to do a WDO? How old was he again?
Yeah, he's 17, so he can be eligible under 18-year-old eligibility criteria.
So that's easy. And
that's
just to give the person who asked about the evidence, what's the evidence for under 18s? It's just proof of age card, I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or some sort of proof of age card, identity, passport, birth certificate.
Yeah.
What activities can he do? So maybe there's something with Kaz. So with Kaz, it would be case management, I guess. She's working with him, and then there might be other places that she's able to refer him out to.
Yeah, so you may want to do some drug and alcohol counselling or something, or you may want to do, you know, quit line, you know, because he's starting to smoke and he's such a young age. He could also maybe do some anger management, because, you know, he's got that offensive language. So that could be, you know, with, say, Headspace or something like that.
Yeah. So I think in this case we've got the Kaz is he's meeting with Kaz, so that's $50 an hour. So he can do a few hours a month with her.
Yeah.
Then
did he discuss what his life goals was in his meeting with Kaz?
Probably. Yeah.
But did he say that he wanted to drive or something like that?
Yeah. Who doesn't?
He does.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, so yeah, he can do a learn to drive course.
Okay.
$50 an hour, so you might get, I don't know, 8 hours a month out of that. A TAFE course, it could be a TAFE course that he can do. He might see a youth counsellor. So there's going to be lots of options. So I guess it's just looking into what he can do.
Yes.
So what we're going to do now, also at the end, we're going to give you a little client details form, which you can use just to assemble all the details from a person, and we'll send that at the end as well.
Okay.
So we're just going to go through now, we've got about half an hour left, about 25 minutes. We're going to go through the process of how you would enter a work and development order.
Yeah, but before we do that, Linda, we'll just clarify this point about what is an administrator and what is a standard user. So just to clarify, that an administrator is a person that can oversee every WDO that district has entered in, and a standard user is usually the caseworker, and it only can see the WDOs that person has entered in. So usually the team leader would see everything, and then the caseworker would just see their WDOs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we go on, just jumping back to the previous question about referrals, we've got a question about if someone's in a border town, so this person's if they're in Queanbeyan, can they refer to ACT services? And I guess the same could apply under, Victoria.
Linda is
another great question
because Linda is our cross-border expert.
Yeah, so I work down on the southern region, so all on that border area. It's a good question, and it's no problem. You can do a WDO in another state as long as the fines are New South Wales fines. And on that, there is actually a little equivalent program in Victoria for Victorian fines called the WDP, and ACT also has a little program. But to answer your question, yes.
So you can pay off the New South Wales fines by attending a service or course
in ACT, or in Victoria, that's fine. As long as they're, yes.
Okay, excellent. So now we'll move on to the portal, which is a bit more of the driest part of this webinar. But hopefully it won't be too onerous on everybody. So this is what it looks like. So we go, unfortunately we don't have a live portal. It would be much better if we did. So we just have to give you all these screenshots. But as Linda had mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, we are happy to go out to your offices and sit with you and go through this with your team in a live portal setting, so you can sort of get a feel for it. It is really user friendly, so that works to our advantage. But again, we are happy to go out and do that. So first of all, you have to go into the Revenue New South Wales website, and then you just look for, on the right hand side, Work and Development Order Self-Service, and click on that. Then you'll get the next screen, which will pop up, and it's this one, and it will enter in your username and password. So when the administrator sets you up as a standard user, you will get an email and it would have your username and password, and that's what you maintain. So you click on Login. Once you do that, this is what the screen looks like. It tells you your organisation, it tells you the reporting period, and the portal opens up on the 15th of every month. And on the left-hand side, you have every single box there that you can use. So you have create new application, so that's for to create new WDOs. Retrieve application, if you've already created one and you want to retrieve it back. You've got your transaction summary of all the things that you've done, your account profile, change your password, and the password expires every 180 days. So don't actually save your password because it will prompt you to change it again. User maintenance is mainly for the administrators, and same with the sponsor details. Yeah, so user maintenance is where you go to add on new sponsors, new users. I just want to note as well, down the bottom there, you've got the WDO hotline number, that 1300 478 879. They will become your friends. That is the revenue. Yeah, they're really fantastic. That's a Revenue New South Wales hotline. It's manned or womaned every day. They will answer all your questions that you have about this portal. You can see underneath is also the WDO guidelines. So everything that we're telling you is from the guidelines. And then the self-service portal user guide is quite handy as well. It's pretty big. It's like over 80 pages, but it's got screenshots, all these screenshots. So quite helpful if if it's late at night and you can't call the hotline, you can have a look at that user guide. And the hotline staff are happy for you to contact them, and they'll rather sit with you for 20 minutes and do an application and get it done and submit it successfully than you try to do it on your own, sort of go into it and then it not be that successful. Yeah. So once you log in, you'll go to, first of all, you always have to turn your mind to whether the WDO is more appropriate to do than to pay their fines in a monetary sense. So turn your mind to that, you click yes, and then you just go next. So it will bring up this screen, and it's the validation screen, and so you basically need to fill in anything that has an asterisk, but as we mentioned, we have a client details form that has already all these questions on there, so all you can do is you fill in that, then you just copy it over. Then you click on next again. Then it'll ask for the sponsor details, so Kaz puts in her case manager name, she then clicks on next, and then it puts what activity we're going to do. So in this case, Kaz is going to do counselling and case management. There are a few other steps that we've skipped over because really it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see above there's validation, sponsor details, client details, which is pretty straightforward. The WDO grounds, so that will ask you that's the eligibility, eligibility, and then proposed activity. Yeah. So you select the activity. So in the grounds, we would have put the under 18 role. Yep. Okay.
And just to note as well, because people often ask, like, this is all, you keep your proof yourself. You have to keep it for 5 years in a secure location. You don't have to upload it to the portal or anything.
No.
It's just, you know, you just need to enter all this information into the portal.
Excellent. All right, we'll continue on with logging on. So there we go, that we're doing counselling and case management, and we're actually going to do case management as the activity. Then it asks you, is this activity ordered by a court? And you remember that we've said if it's ordered by a court, it is you can't do a WDO. If it's not ordered by a court, then you can. So in that case, we'll click no, so we can continue. And then it asks us to estimate a number of hours. Now, each activity, there are several activities that are hourly, that you count on hourly rate, and other activities such as medical, mental health treatment, drug and alcohol treatment, and mentoring that are counted on a compliance base. But unfortunately, the portal does not allow you to do a compliance-based rate, so you actually have to put in a number. Suggestion is 2, because if you part comply with a compliance part, then if you put in 1, then you'll get 0 because you have no half points. But if you put in 2 and they only comply with half the component, you can put in 1, at least they can get $500 off their fines.
But this one is case management, so it's
this
not
one,
compliance. So.
Yes, so this one, it won't matter in this case. It will give you, it will default to the start date of that day that you're submitting it. However, you can future date it, but you can't backdate it. Now that's something that's in the Fines Act, so we can't go and backdate it. So it's always very important, as soon as you find out that your young person has a fines debt, to try to get all this sorted quickly, so then you can start counting every time you can case manage them or whatever activity you're going to refer them to.
It can't be backdated.
Yeah.
I just wanted to note as well, this activity ordered by a court. We've had a question, especially in the world that you're working in, especially in the care and protection world. A caseworker asked if they're seeing a young person under a care order, does that mean that it can't be counted? Which I thought was an interesting question, but I would say that is not an excluded activity for a work and development order, because really the court activity that the work and development order wants to exclude is something which was ordered as part of a punishment for a person, but obviously the care and protection regime or world is to look out for people. So if you are seeing a person under a care order, you can count the activities they're doing on the WDO.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's good clarification, Linda. The other thing it asks you is how the activity will be provided, whether direct or by refer. And as you know, case management is direct and all the activities are by referral.
That's for your service,
yes,
specifically. Yep.
Okay, and then we click on next again. And this will come up with what we've already entered the data. So if you think it's all correct, you just click on next. Just don't click on save because it's not going to go anywhere.
And just to note that add new activities. So in Kaz and Dan's case, because she was doing case management with him,
yeah,
so 2 hours a month. And then if she wanted to add another activity, like she's doing the TAFE course, yes, and the Learn to Drive course, she just goes and adds the new activity and then goes through that process again. So she'll have like 3 activities for the same month.
Excellent. Okay, we've clicked on next and it will bring us up to the next screen. And it says, do any of the activities involve working with children? Obviously, it's a 17-year-old, so it's yes, and you need to put in there you're working with children, clearance check number, and also your expiry date. You click next again. And then it says, it talks about existing debt. So do you authorize, or does the person authorize revenue to add new enforcement orders to the WDO? This is where you sit down and have a conversation with your client about what is to happen if they have new fines. You can either click yes or no. It is up to you whether you click either one. However, if your young person would like to challenge a fine and you've already clicked yes, then they don't have that.
The thing with this, it is a tricky question, you know, and we're happy to talk to you about it, and it does depend on each situation. But if you click yes, the thing to note, it's only when it becomes an enforcement that it's automatically added.
Yes.
So they can still challenge a new fine. Some people have different views about this, you know, like I would generally tell a caseworker just to say yes, because it just means that if there's a fine that they don't know about it, it will be captured and included on the WDO. Mm-hmm. But it is up to you and to your client, and I'd say have a conversation about it. The other thing that's interesting about this is We've got that blue box there covering it up, but this will show actually all the fines that the person actually owes. So, you know, you'll see train, transit ticket, bike ticket, not wear a helmet. You will see what the actual fines are. And we do sometimes have questions from people who are a bit uncomfortable about including certain fines on a WDO. For example, it might be a domestic violence related offence, or, you know, have some kind of assault element, which their service is just not that comfortable in actually supporting a person to clear. So this is relatively new, this component of the, you know, of the process, that you actually see all the fines. So you can select to add it to the WDO, or to put it on the payment plan, or to do neither if you want to. So that's kind of an interesting sort of control that you have over the fines that are being added. I mean, obviously from our point of view, like, to make it easy, you would just add them all on the WDO, but again, that's up to you and to have a conversation with your client about. So you can do obviously a WDO and a payment plan, and they can coexist at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a couple of questions. Do you want to finish going through the portal first?
No, we can answer the question.
Yeah, so one is a more practical one about how long it takes someone to do the application form.
From start to finish, depending on your data entry skills, you're talking probably, say, 10 minutes to 20.
Yeah. I think sponsors have told us when they, you know, it all feels very slow and arduous at the moment, but once they're used to it, you know, I really think it's about 10 minutes to do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, the other question is specific around if a young person is in care and there are orders from the court, but they might be a bail condition to follow all reasonable directions by FaCS. Okay.
But it doesn't say specifically you must attend, say, for example, Headspace.
Yeah.
Not according to this question. So it's it's not a court order, like
that you must obey all reasonable directions.
Yeah.
It's a great question. It's a little bit of a vexatious issue at the moment, or vexed issue, I would say, not vexatious, but it's the same with community supervision when you're on bail. I actually would love you to email through that anonymised order, because we are really looking at this issue. You know, we have a WDO guidelines kind of management group, and we are looking at this issue. So I wasn't actually aware that they did those sorts of orders. So if you wouldn't mind sending that to us, we will include that. And I'm hoping that when we are doing an amendment to the guidelines, which should be hopefully the end of this year or maybe the beginning of next year, but I'm hoping that it will clarify that those kind of general broad orders will not be counted as a ineligible order, if that's not too many double negatives.
Yeah,
but yeah, so hopefully, I mean, I would say at the moment it's fine because it's broad. As Karina said, I think if it specifically said, yeah, again, it's a care order though. It's not a punishment, is it?
Well, they're on bail.
They're on bail.
They're in care,
it's complicated.
They've committed a crime and they're on bail.
They're on bail. Okay. Oh, they're on bail to report to FaCS, essentially.
Well, one of the conditions of bail is follow all
reasonable
directions.
Yeah, look,
FaCS.
it's this community supervision. It's really quite a vexed area. I would say at the moment, don't worry about it. Yes, it's fine, just because that's kind of what's happening out in the world, you know. But I'm hoping that we will have better clarity around that within the next 6 months.
Okay, thank you.
Great questions.
All right, we'll keep going on then with the portal. Okay, again, it asks you if you want to set up a payment plan along with a WDO, and then it just tells you how that payment plan will work, whether by themselves or through Centrelink, and what minimum fortnightly you can include. Yeah. And then we'll click on next. Conflict of interest. So it's just it's about conflict of interest or perceived conflict of interest. So, for example, if you and your young person have the same surname, you know, on paper it looks like, you know, you're helping out your family there, or you click there is there a conflict of interest, and you know, even if it's a perceived, you clicked yes, and then you just write in the notes, same surname, not related. It's sometimes more difficult in regional towns where there are limited services, and if there is some sort of relationship there, you can just say that this will be managed by someone else. So it's just to give that transparency of the WDO scheme, and not to be shown that this, you know, is just been taken for granted. You'll then have to then acknowledge all these terms and conditions and click yes, and then the
final
final step is submit. And if you've done everything correctly, yay, you will get the WDO application submitted and will be open, it will be green. So that will be great. There are other things that could happen if you don't get green. You could get a pending, an unmatched, or a, what was the other one?
I don't know, saved.
Saved, that's it. So just be mindful that if you get anything that's not open, contact the hotline straight away. It could be a case that you have the young person's first, middle and last name, and revenue only have their first and last name. So that information gets stored in another computer. It's manually taken out, probably takes about 2 weeks. But if you call the hotline, they'll be able to retrieve your WDO, and you can just say, look, I just submitted a WDO, I didn't get open, something else happened, can you look into this for me? Because that will have, you know, consequences if there's any sanctions in place, or, you know, by the time you start counting your WDO.
Yeah.
Are you happy to take a couple of questions?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So can you explain again how the mental health order under Section 32 works if somebody's been ordered to do certain things under that order?
So under the guidelines, it's an exception. So even though it is court ordered, you can do a WDO for a Section 32 order.
Did they want to know what a Section 32 means?
No, I think it's just comparing that to the earlier question about if they're on bail and there's conditions, is it a similar type of exception?
It's all a little bit tricky. I mean, but because mental health, it just so happens we got an amendment to the guidelines that anything that is mental health related, so if you're an involuntary patient under the Mental Health Act, so if you're on a community treatment order, or you're an involuntary patient, or you're getting treatment under a Section 32 order, so you've been ordered from the court to go and get mental health treatment, which is then considered in a hearing, a later criminal hearing, that is all allowed. That's been all allowed to be counted because it was the specific exception. So I guess we're working towards something like that with the bail. Bail is a little bit of a grey zone, but the mental health, that all can be counted.
Great, thank you. And another question which you might be getting to is, what are the consequences if the client can't complete the task or the course that they've committed to?
Yeah.
Okay. So the implications will be that you will report a nil activity, so they won't get credited that amount to reduce their fine debt. And then depending on what type of activities, how much less they have in their fines.
Yeah, so there's no real consequence except that they don't reduce their fines.
Yep. However, if you do in a 3-month period, do a nil report, so it means that they've not done anything for 3 months, revenue will, it gets flagged, and revenue will just call you up and saying, does the person still want to do a WDO? Is it the most appropriate form to do that, or do you want to close this WDO? Yeah,
but I think, the essence of the question is there a consequence? And I think there is no consequence. It's not like a community service order or something. There's no, you don't get punished for not doing the activities that you said you were going to do.
It will just take you longer to reduce your fine debt, basically.
Yeah. And I guess as a sponsor, we do have some sponsors that make their own kind of rules around that they're a bit annoyed that a person might come in and start doing something and then they don't do it, and then they come again and they're like, look, I've given you a chance, I'm going to give you another chance, but I'm not going to do it again, or I'm going to do a different activity, I guess the bottom line for you as sponsors is that it's up to you and the client about how you want to make the program work, but we don't impose any consequences on people for not complying.
But also just turning your mind to when you initially submit your WDO, just be mindful of not setting up the client to fail. So maybe not giving them way too many activities that they won't be able to comply with, and just giving them less activities to know that they'll definitely be doing this.
So we're at 5 to 3, and we're conscious that we don't want to take up your time. So we might just try to zoom through a bit. So we've talked about Kaz, and she's going to enter in the hours that Dan's doing. So this is just a little sort of timesheet that we've actually borrowed it from another sponsor, but we hand it out to sponsors. So we will send you this at the end. So it's just a kind of template that you might find handy to use. You do need to keep kind of proof that a person has attended the activities.
If it's on a referral. Yeah.
Or even for yourself,
Yes,
at your own
that's true.
service, it's really important that you have proof. You are subject to audit as a sponsor organisation, you know, which happens once a month. So if they do an audit, they want to see exactly the questions you've asked. What's the proof of eligibility? What's the proof that the activity existed and that the person attended at the activity? So something like this is a really handy, easy way to use to show that they did attend.
Yes.
Okay. So Karina, we talked through the create application process.
Yes.
This is sort of the second step. It's really a two-step process, isn't it?
It is.
So this is now when you go in and report, which is once a month.
Yes, so the portal opens up on the 15th of every month, and that's when you report. However, if the 15th falls on a Saturday, I don't expect you to go to work. You work hard enough as it is. You can do it on the Monday. So you go back to that home screen, you go to retrieve WDO, and it would show you there what the current reporting activity is. Then you can see what it is. So Dan, his balance is 1,600. You're his case manager. You have to click on CAR, which stands for Client Activity Report. Just remember the CAR.
What's that?
Then you'll go to add or amend. So click there, and then you report on hours. Once the fines are finished for the young person, so they've cleared all their fine debt, you get this certificate, you go and print it, and then you hand it in to the young person.
And just to note that this option is a once only option. You'll get that message once only. If you don't click on it and print it out, it'll disappear. So you kind of need to take advantage of that opportunity. I think if you miss it and you're desperate to get one, you can email revenue and they'll mock you up something. But yeah, just to note that.
Okay.
So it's a pretty easy, you know, the reporting process is really quick.
Yes.
Everything's up there. Basically the screen comes up and tells you what you've entered. You do that, add the hours, and it's very quick.
Yes. Now, how can legal aid help with large fines, Linda? So, you know, the young person has, say, $10,000. You're only going to case manage them and be with them for like 3 months of that $10,000 debt. So they've got 7 left over. What can we do? Yeah,
so this kind of comes up a bit. So you might refer the person back to us to try to look for a different sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
You might, if they've really engaged and you're happy and you feel, you know, they've really engaged with you and they've made some progress and you know, there's not really another option for them, you can apply for a write-off, and we do that. We have a kind of
understanding.
Yeah, we have a process with revenue, so you know, feel free to refer them back to us and we can do a write-off for them, or you can do another WDO. It sort of depends, I guess, on the person and where they're at, and if there's another WDO option that is kind of useful and available.
So the message really is that, you know, legal aid is here to assist. So if you're sort of stuck in this, just give us a buzz.
Yeah.
If you wanted to find another sponsor, you can go on the Revenue New South Wales website. They have a whole list there, but it's always best to contact legal aid, because we do have like this other subsequent list, and we have a lot of good relationships with our sponsors within our areas, and we know who they are.
Yeah.
As we've mentioned, that we're going to give you some resources, and that will be after the webinar, which is the step-by-step guide. It is also the client eligibility checklist, and it will also be the client details form.
So that client eligibility checklist, that has all the information. The person that asked about the proof of eligibility, that's like a 4-sided, double-sided sheet. So that's kind of just summarises what you need, the proof that you need to keep.
Yes.
Is that the last slide?
Yeah, and this is just contacts for help. So remember, if it's got to do with the self-service portal or general WDO questions, contact the hotline. If it's got to do with training, sponsor support, or specialist fines advice, then contact legal aid. Yeah,
and like we said, we have 6 teams across New South Wales. So we have Metro, you're in Liverpool. Yes. We have one in Wollongong, who covers the whole of southern New South Wales and far west.
Orange.
We have Orange, which covers all of Central West.
Gosford, which covers Gosford and the Hunter.
And Lismore, which is the North Coast.
That's
right. So you can email us. There's the email address there, that WDO at Legal Aid, and we will send your email to the
appropriate team.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Does anyone have any questions before we wrap up?
Yeah. So we're right on 3 o'clock.
Excellent.
If you do have further questions, feel free to email them through either to that WDO email address or to the webinar address that you had, and we will be, we're happy to answer them.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed this webinar. Thank you, Linda, and thank you, our wonderful producer, Natalie, on the keyboard there. Without her technical savviness, this would not be able to be done.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. See
You
ya.
can wait a couple of minutes if anyone has questions.
Yeah.
Okay.
Please type those in.
Yeah. I think everyone did them along the way.
Yeah.
Okay, we might wrap it up.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.